Welcome to the Keep Baseball Great podcast, where it's all about reminding baseball fans why they love the game. In this episode, we get to talk with Anika Orrock. Anika is an illustrator, storyteller, author, and just all-around baseball fan. Her latest book, The Incredible Women of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball Club, just came out, and it is fantastic. We'll get to hear more about the book, what happens at the Orrock family reunion, the story of Anika catching fly balls from Vida Blue, and her Field of Dreams moment with Bruce Bochy. A lot of great insight and stories from Anika, so sit back and enjoy. Well, hey, Anika, thank you so much for joining us on the Keep Baseball Great podcast. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I appreciate it.
Of course. So before we get started, I know this is a baseball podcast, and so not a lot of people in the baseball world might know who you are. I do, because I'm a big fan. But tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you're on a baseball podcast.
Why am I here? What am I doing here? My name is Anika Orrock, and I'm an illustrator, storyteller, I suppose. I'm now an author, and I just released my first major published work, which is called The Incredible Women of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. You have to take a big breath after you say that. Yeah, it is. But it's a descriptive title because it's true. They are quite incredible. And I've been doing baseball illustration and art for quite a while, and stories. But this was the big one and a lot of fun. And I'm still doing baseball illustration, although the whole drawing at games part of what I do is on hold a little bit for now.
Definitely.
But
it's a bummer.
Yeah, yes it is. But so I guess that's how I got here, unless you invited me here for some reason I don't know about.
No, of course not. No, yeah. So yeah, you like you said, you put some stuff out on Instagram, and I'm being a designer and illustrator, I kind of found you through that, but then also noticed just all these really cool baseball drawings, and I could just really tell your love of baseball. And you have a little bit of a history in your family, is that correct?
Yeah, I do. My great-grandfather played, I guess what would be kind of considered like the AAA for the Pacific Coast League. So it was the Vallejos in Vallejo, California. He played, and then he later managed. And my grandfather played in college. My uncle played. But that's about it as far as playing. The rest of us are just avid fans. We're not. I mean, I draw and write. Clearly, it's not in my DNA to be super athletic. Although I guess I am a little bit, not when it comes to team sports. But
yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that history, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about that. But so Keep Baseball Great podcast is just all about reminding baseball fans why they love the game, and I know your stuff for me has done that, and so I would love to just kind of ask you these 5 questions. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. All right. So the first one is just all about the history. And so do you have any favorite historical baseball moments that you just love?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I have many, but okay, wait, let's qualify this. Is this one that I was alive for, or just at any point?
For me, I think it's any. I have some really fun, random baseball memories, like Rick Monday jumping out on a baseball field, grabbing the American flag because 2 people were trying to burn it, in the 70s.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's just stuff like that is really fun. So there's no stipulations to where you want to have a favorite moment.
Okay. Well, I guess if we're going back in time, there are so many, but I think one that stands out for me, I'm a Giants fan. So I think it would probably be the 1963 pitching duel between Warren Spahn and Juan Marichal,
Nice.
Because, that's 15 and a third, I think it was 15 and a half innings of some of the greatest pitching of all time. But then you've got Willie Mays hitting the winning run in in like the 15th inning or something. So, I mean, Willie Mays is kind of my favorite of all time, but, well, not kind of, I mean, he is, but, most people go to the catch, which of course is amazing. But as far as, just sort of like all around all time awesomeness, I think that would be my favorite historical moment was Willie Mays winning home run. Ones that I was alive for, I definitely remember Matt Cain's perfect game. That was a good one. And then I went to a game in Arizona when Randy Johnson hit a bird. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, you were at that game.
That was one of the craziest, weirdest, most bizarre, memorable experiences. Yeah. And I also just remember thinking, gosh, it's so pleasant outside in Arizona, not realizing there was a roof, and then stepping outside after the game and being like, oh my God. That was another thing. That's not historical. It's just part of it.
That's fun. That's so fun. Yeah, I will watch that video clip of Randy Johnson hitting that bird 1,000 times and still can't get over it. It's crazy.
It's pretty amazing. I don't know that ever happened before that we just didn't know about, but I can't imagine it did, and I can't imagine it happening again. That's just like,
yeah.
That's it was awesome. That bird's time, I guess.
Yeah, right. So part of the historical moment, and going back to the book you just wrote, tell us a little bit just about that historical piece of baseball and the book. So just kind of fill us in a little bit on that.
Yeah, well, where it takes place in history and where it fits in is that, World War II, the United States entering the war, and that was a all hands on deck, everyone able-bodied, and willing. Well, I don't even know if they were willing, but anyone able-bodied needed to be somehow involved. So all able-bodied men of a certain age were having to go off to war and fight, or in some capacity. Women filled places in the workforce that they had never filled before, factories, and filling in jobs of men that had taken off overseas. So baseball was kind of no exception. They questioned whether or not baseball would continue during World War II, and the president sent a letter to Kennesaw Landis, the commissioner of baseball, saying that he felt it was necessary to continue to keep up morale, as we're realizing now that would be really nice to have.
Right.
So he was not wrong. But, that taking a back seat to, if, of course, players are able to fight, they should go. So that really kind of left the rosters pretty dry, and particularly in minor leagues, also in the major leagues. And so as a business, it was a little iffy. And Philip Wrigley, it would be nice to think that he was just like pro women, and, he had to be to a degree, obviously, to make this happen. But I think it was also a business decision, and he figured, these ballparks are not going to be used very often, and let's figure out a way to sell some tickets. Well, they didn't end up using the major league ballparks, but his venture took off and it became very successful. He recruited women, and he formed a league of 4 teams to start with, and it expanded quite a bit. And he put the teams in the Midwest, where most war manufacturing plants were, factories, where most Americans were working. They couldn't be going anywhere to baseball games, even if they wanted to. There was gas rationing, and they were working really long hours in factories. So he brought the recreation to them. So in essence, these women were fulfilling a patriotic duty. But the bonus is that, they made very considerable salaries. Wrigley wanted to make sure that he got real athletes, and these women were real professional baseball players. And I mean, such a thing had never existed, but they were of that caliber. And so he wanted to keep that caliber high. So he paid them well. A lot of them made more money even than their fathers, or that they would have made in factories. So they got to fulfill a duty while living out their dream. A lot of the women I interviewed grew up just like any little boy. There's always the talk of, as you're a little boy, you just dream at night of, playing second base for the Yankees, or I want to be,
Yeah.
And a lot of these women told me that was their dream. But once they expressed that dream, it was like, you just get laughed out of the classroom, or, it was just impossible. So it was pretty unique and special that it was possible, but it lasted far beyond the war. It lasted until 1953. And yeah, so it was this pretty incredible moment in history when women played professional baseball, and that's it. And then it just kind of disappeared from the history books, as a lot of
Yeah.
things do when it comes to women and people of color and different sexual orientations, as we learned. But until Penny Marshall came along and made the movie,
Yes.
and yeah, so
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah. So this book is really like an extreme expanded version of the little snippet of what that movie is, really, right?
Yeah, I mean, the movie is incredible
Mm-hmm.
in that it made that it let people know that this existed and it was based on this true story, but it was very, very different than what actually happened in terms of yeah, there's kind of a lot missing and a lot that was sort of given the Hollywood sparkle, some
Right.
dramatizations of things, or things made to be more dramatic, or the duel between the sisters and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one thing I think that is most interesting about the movie is that it makes it seem like it was just a war thing. Like it just lasted
Mm.
a year. There was a championship and then it was done. When that was not the case at all. And these women were like heroes in their towns, and they were widely known in the Midwest and even nationally. They got coverage, and their existence opened up a whole conversation about women in the major leagues. And one thing that's really interesting is once that really got out and the athleticism of these women really became known and that conversation started happening, Major League Baseball put an official ban on admitting women into
Oh,
baseball in any
wow.
capacity in 1952. So if that says anything, there were no official rules because they didn't, I guess they just didn't think they needed any.
Yeah.
And then suddenly these women came along and they hurried up and put a ban. So they must have been doing something good. They must have
Yeah.
been good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding. So, you said you got to interview some of the actual players. What was that like? I mean, when you were just kind of talking to them, getting to hear stories from them, was it just really cool?
Oh, it was the coolest. Yeah, I interviewed quite a few, either in person or over the phone. And yeah, it was just so fun. They really, I've told people before, there are moments where some of them were a little bit reluctant, or I guess for lack of a better word, maybe a little cranky when I called.
Mm.
But to, I can't fault them at all. When you're like in your 80s and someone's calling you wanting to talk to you, and it's like, oh, just leave me alone.
Yeah.
But inevitably, no matter what the circumstances, once they started talking, it started coming back, and then they
Mm.
started going with it, and they started picking up momentum. And there were times where I had to stop them because it would be like 2.5 hour phone call. And I mean, I never wanted to stop them. And a lot of times I just didn't, but sometimes it would just kind of veer off into like,
Something completely else. Yeah.
their dogs dying or something. It was like, I don't know, making something up. But it was really incredible because, while we have the movie for sort of context, and then there are some other books out there. There are more like scholarly works. There are interview materials available in print and whatever. But the experience of talking to them and hearing their stories firsthand, I've said it's probably the closest thing that we'll ever get to time travel
Mm.
because you're really getting the full sense. That's why I feel like story is so important, and that's why I love doing what I do and incorporating story into what I do, because I think it's really just, you're there, you're transported, if they're good at telling a story particularly, but the way they tell it with the passion, and some of them are just so sharp, their memories are like, it's
Mm.
like they're there, and so you're kind of going with them because they're recalling it as if it happened
Yeah.
this morning, and you really get that feeling, and that was the most fun.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, so kind of going with that a little bit, the next question is just all about family and friends, and then the experiences you get to experience with them, and how that just makes baseball great for you and everybody. So, do you have a moment in time or just a memory with family or friends that you've been able to just experience baseball with, and just helps you enjoy the game that much more?
Yes. Oh, plenty. I mean, to be to generalize or to be vague, definitely just being transported to my grandparents' house. It was the greatest house and the greatest time when they were both. I mean, my grandmother is still living, but she is in a memory care facility now, and my grandfather passed away in 2008. But they just had the most comfortable house, and the baseball game was always on. If it was baseball season, it was on, or in the car if we were going to visit someone. Just having the game on, that's probably my favorite memory in general. But in 2010, we happened to have a family reunion of all the Orrock side at my Aunt Gail's in Napa. And we're all really close. I mean, even extended family, they're just the most fun. And we're all baseball fans. And that was the day, I think it was game 3 of the NLDS between the Braves and the Giants. And that game happened to be on, and it started maybe halfway into our reunion. So we got to have fun, have a picnic, and then suddenly it was on. And pretty much the entire family reunion moved into this little den, and it just became, it was so much fun. And then I think other than that, being able to bring the first game where I was invited into the broadcast booth at the Giants game, the first invitation I received, I was told I could bring a couple of friends or whoever. So I brought my good friend Matt and Jesse, who are like 2 of my best friends. And that was just ridiculously fun to be able to share that with them and watch the post-game wrap and just explore up in the broadcast booth and watch the game from the seats that were given to us. That was ridiculous. That was so much fun. And I got to bring my grandmother there later too. And that was really, cool. Really special. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. There is something about sharing those experiences, especially watching like playoff baseball with a tight knit group it's so much fun. And I love it.
Yeah, totally.
It's cool. You get to experience that. So the next question is life lessons. So I know baseball, the game itself, teaches you, a lot of cool life lessons, but not only if you play, but if you like me, just watching it and being able to coach my son, I learn a lot of stuff through the game. So do you have any like life lessons through baseball that you just kind of hang on to that help you?
I do. Like you said, I think baseball is sort of like a bottomless well of literal and metaphorical lessons. But I think for me, as it applies to me, the most important thing that I take away from it is just being in the moment and just being in it and observing your surroundings or just paying attention to what's happening in that very moment and allowing, you can allow your mind to wander a little bit. The pace of the game is just so good for that. But, and that teaches a couple of things. Like, for example, my experience going to baseball games, a lot of people will keep score or listen on the radio while they watch what's happening on the field. And I draw. So, and I've had people say things to me along the lines of sort of like, you're not paying attention to the game where, things like that, or you missed and also my boyfriend, if we go together, he'll keep score. And sometimes he'll get up and get a beer or go to the bathroom and come back and be like, oh, what happened? And I don't know, I can't tell him like, oh, 3-2, whatever the order is. I'll be like, oh, someone grounded out. But I'm still paying attention, but I'm almost like hyper paying attention. I'm hearing little conversations around me. I'm paying attention to the people around me, or I'm drawing what's on the field. I would argue that I'm actually more in it and more in the moment. Drawing does that too. So baseball and drawing go really well together for just being in the moment. And the other side of that, I guess I would say, is expectation. Being in the moment and not having expectations. There's all kinds of predictions and, favorites going into playoff season in particular. And, there's always the numbers and the stats and everybody's talking about who's going to go where. And that's great and all, and it's fun to talk about. But the truth is, it's not over till it's over. And that's the thing I love. There's plenty of time to make late inning comebacks. And as a Giants fan, I've learned we have there's a whole coined term of torture. It's Giants baseball is torture, but the late inning rallies, it's what makes it so fun. But I just love that it's really always kind of anybody's game, and I think you could really apply that to anything. That expectation is sort of the mother of all disappointment, and just going in and enjoying whatever happens, even if it's like a horrible loss. If you're enjoying the experience and you're in the moment, it won't matter as much.
Oh man. Yeah. You're talking about being in the moment. It's, so coaching my son in baseball, he's, just turned 13. So I'm looking back now, like I just like from him being in T-ball and growing up, just like went really fast. And so just being in the moment, that's so true. Just even from a dad and coaching perspective of, watching your kid and just enjoy that moment and playing, and then just passing on those life lessons to him through those. So those are two really good ones. So the next question is all about giving back. And so I kind of love just the aspect of baseball being a platform of how people give back and how players give back, or even, just on a lower level of, us normal people of just being able to give back in certain ways through the game. So have you ever been a part of something like that, or maybe on the other side of someone giving to you through baseball where you just meant a lot to you?
Yes. Well, I think I would be very quick to say that I have been on the receiving end more often than not. I've been so lucky in all of it. I just think baseball in general has given me so much.
Right.
And also on the receiving end of that might be, there was a time, let's see, I guess it would be 2014. It was 2014. I went through like a pretty rough spot in my life. I relocated, I broke off a long relationship, like all kinds of things were happening. And in a nutshell, without going too into it, the thing that really got me through was baseball on the radio. But I wasn't living in the Bay Area. For about 6 months, I was living outside of the Bay Area, but there's this phone app. And so just hearing John Miller's voice and knowing the game was coming on, and then if there was a day where there wasn't a game, I had some go-to music. But so it was kind of surreal to be able to meet John Miller very shortly after that. And he's been so incredibly generous with everything. Just beyond. I wouldn't even know where to begin, and I would never even know how to repay him for all the opportunities and just moments that he's gifted me, or tickets. But so that's definitely, that's just sort of been a game changer. I think a lot of things happen with my art and my career that had I not been able to be where I was when I was because of him, it may not have happened. As in terms of giving back, it's been really, really fun. Working on this book is a great opportunity to do that just by doing what I do. The ability to take these stories and these moments and, I just thought they were really amazing and fun. And I feel honored to just be able to share them. But as I created the book, in the middle of working on it, all these kind of weird other pieces started coming together, and realizations that I had never been aware of involving girls and women in baseball now, or sort of the benefactors of the trailblazing of these women, or it was such a weird, I almost felt embarrassed. I'm like in my 30s making this book about this moment in history, but the awareness of contemporary issues and that this had happened 75 years ago, and essentially
here we are today.
We like regressed from the 40s, and so just having my eyes open to that and then reaching out, it prompted the desire to write an afterword. And I'm really, really lucky that I had a great team at Chronicle Books who let me do that, because I felt like it was really important to, because I started asking my own questions, like, what why hasn't this existed? Why, what is happening now? And I kind of felt like more people would ask that question and not enough people know. And I didn't even know that there was a Team USA of women's baseball, and they were playing the Women's World Cup the year I was researching and writing the book, or started it. So I started following it, and it was really great baseball. But, I was like, I'm embarrassed to know this didn't even exist. But
right.
So through all of this, I've been able to make a lot of connections and find a community that's really, really special and cool, of girls and women in baseball. And there's a lot of great organizations that are really working to provide opportunities for girls and inclusiveness for girls who want to play baseball, at least having the option, that there shouldn't just be girls play softball, boys play baseball. Because also I did not know until I was making this book that they're two completely different sports. And I don't think a lot of people know that. I think a lot of people think that softball is this sort of like toned down version of baseball or something. Yeah. Or like a softer baseball, which is not true in two respects. One, softball is crazy competitive, and professional softball players are, exceptional athletes. Yes, it's an incredible sport. But also it's just not the same. There are so many differences in the way the game is played and the distances and one girl basically, that I interviewed, she was saying how weird it is to be playing baseball up until a certain point in school. And then when you really kind of can't go any further, there's no opportunities. You're offered like a scholarship in softball. She was offered a scholarship in softball, and she's like, it was so weird. It may as well have been a scholarship in soccer. Or she's like, I've never played softball.
Wow.
And so weird that I was being offered a scholarship for a sport I've never played. And the adjustment, she's like, I just didn't want to. I wanted to play baseball. So it's been really cool being connected with these organizations and having the opportunity to either donate my services or my artwork or my time. The All-American Girls Professional Baseball League Players Association, I attend their reunion annually, and I've donated art for their auctions, which has been really cool, and designed some things for them to use. And I designed like their 75th anniversary, like artwork and poster, and just different things. It's like I don't have $1 million to give, so I just give how, in ways that I know how, and it's really fun for me. I can't think of a better way, a more fun way to contribute to things that I care about like this. Than just doing what I already like to do. So
I think you just said it. It's, a lot of times we talk about giving back, and it just automatically triggers a monetary idea. But the way you're giving back, just in the stuff you're doing, and even just raising awareness, is incredible. And then just the pouring in that other people have done to you in your life is just really cool to see, and just, I'm sure, makes you appreciate and love baseball just even more. So
100%. Yeah.
That's really cool. So the last question is just all about fun. And we can talk about a lot of different things about baseball, the history, or the family, friends, but just a lot of times there's a lot of fun things that the game provides through it. And so it's just a lot of fun. I know I smile a lot, and I laugh a lot with my son when we play. And so are there any like really just fun moments in baseball that you just look back on and just have a big smile on your face?
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Probably every single memory I have, but let's see. I think, as far as with the women that I interviewed are concerned, there's been some really fun, a lot of them are a little bit older. Well, not a little bit older. They're freaking old, but a lot of them are not quite able to physically partake anymore, but some of them are. And I think one of the most fun things for me was the first reunion I ever went to in Cincinnati. I didn't know anybody, 2017. And my first experience meeting the women was going to the Cincinnati Reds game where they were going to be honored. And I was down near the field, and a couple of them, they were going to throw and catch the ceremonial first pitch. And so watching them play catch was amazing because they were like throwing heat. It was amazing. Personal moments, let's see. Well, one of the best was a day that I had the opportunity, thanks to my friend Matt, to spend a day at the ballpark in San Francisco on it was an off day, like there was no game. And Vida Blue and Dave Dravecki were there. It was just sort of like a day at the park. He won a contest. So he brought me as his other person, I guess. So there weren't that many people there, but Vida Blue was hitting flies in the outfield. We're just shagging flies off Vida Blue for a whole afternoon. And that was ridiculously fun and hilarious because I had grabbed a mitt at the last minute, and I have two mitts. One I use for decorative purposes when I do like trade shows where I put like my art in the mitt. So it's like really small. And then the other one is my actual mitt, and I accidentally grabbed the really small one. So I wasn't getting anything. And Vida Blue is like all the way at home plate. And he's like aiming for me because I'm the only girl out there. And he's yelling at me from home plate. And I hope I can curse on here, but he's like, "You're fucking killing me, girl!" Like just yelling at me, like just so berating me, but in a hilarious way. It was really fun. Let's see. I think a couple of other ones that bring a real big smile. Game 2 of the 2010 World Series, Matt Cain was pitching, and I'll just never forget the first pitch of that game was a strike, and it was the first inning, first pitch, and it sounded like we had just won the World Series. The volume in that ballpark was, you couldn't hear yourself yell, let alone talk.
Yeah.
And of course it just went from there. The Giants won like 9-0. Sorry, I didn't know you're a Rangers fan. I hate to keep bringing up like
as long as it's not the Cardinals. The Giants was okay because it wasn't that bad, but the Cardinals one is even worse. So
okay, well, I'm not a huge Cardinals fan, so don't worry.
There you
go. And then and of course another really great one. There's been a couple times, but the first time when Dave Fleming was on the road and John Miller told me I'd be planning to come to the game, but he would tell me like, well, Dave's gone, so you could just sit in his chair and draw. And I'll never forget the first time sitting in his chair while John was calling the game, and I was just sitting there drawing, and it was just like, oh,
this is crazy.
Like, I mean, I guess like some people would dream of playing in a major league game. That's like my level of like of drawing in a major league game. And then I think in the last one there would be my boyfriend and I would say any game just with my boyfriend, because it's such a pleasurable thing to sit and draw while he keeps score, and it's just a nice time. But we went to a spring training game at the A's home park. It was Giants A's, and unbeknownst to us, we got incredible seats right behind home plate. And Bruce Bochy was sitting in like a folding chair behind like the backstop, so he could watch his batters. And a ball was fouled, and anyway, long story short, he gave me the ball, which was amazing, but I kind of hung around later to see if maybe he would sign it. I didn't want to push him, and of course he was flooded with people who wanted autographs. But then for whatever reason, he just I think he kind of overheard some of our conversation, which is weird. You just assume they can't hear. But he looked at me and he said, "Are y'all parked over there?" And I was like, what is he even talking about? He said, "Are you parked down this way?" And I had no idea where we were parked. I have no clue where our bearings are, but I just said yes.
Yeah, sure.
And he said, "Well, why don't you walk with me?" And he had the guy open the little gate and step down on the field. And we just walked the first baseline and then out the doors to their tour bus. And we just chatted. It was like a total Field of Dreams moment because Bruce Bochy, the other crazy thing about that is that my dad and like all the older people in my family who remember my great-grandfather, who I never met, who played for Vallejo, they've all said that Bruce Bochy is like spitting image of my great-grandfather and sounds like him when he talks. And also weird, they share a birthday, which is kind of weird. But so it kind of was like great-grandfather through the cornfield, but it's Bruce Bochy. And,
that's awesome.
That was a really cool moment.
That's cool. And did I, correct me if I'm wrong, but did I read something that you were supposed to throw out a first pitch like in New York?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then Corona hit. Oh my gosh.
It's
I'm
like the bird flying in front of Randy Johnson.
no. I hope that they'll call you back, because that would have been incredible too.
I hope so too. I hope so too. I by like a total fluke, a woman from AP interviewed me about that, and the story ran in the New York Times, and it starts out like Anika was warming up for her time on the mound, and I was like, so I immediately sent it to the representative of the Yankees. I was like, just so you know,
Yeah, yeah.
people are going to be really upset. People being me, but
that
yeah, I
that's
hope
really cool.
so.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
that's really cool. I love hearing those stories, and just people's perspective on the game of baseball. And it's more than just a game to a lot of people, and that's what makes it great. So thanks so much for just kind of answering those questions. I know it's a lot of fun for me to hear them, and hopefully it was for you too, just to share them. So
very fun. Yeah, very good excuse to think on all these things, especially right now, and
yeah,
we're
yeah.
missing it so bad. It's hard not to focus on missing it, but then when you think of things like this, it really brings the smile back.
It does. That's awesome. Well, before we go, I'd love for you just to give our listeners where they can kind of follow you, and then also where they could grab the book, hopefully.
Yeah, sure. Well, you can follow me, not too closely. um, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, but I think probably spend more time on Instagram. But my handle is Anika Draws. It's Anika Draws, but there's an L in there, like a Southern drawl. But that's not why. That's not why the L is in there. But yeah, ANIKADRAWLS is Instagram and Twitter. And then, of course, Facebook is just my name. And I'm really terrible at keeping up my website with my work. So Instagram and Twitter and Facebook are probably the best way to see my daily and weekly, my more regular work. I'm just terrible at it. But
I hear you. I'm on the same boat.
But what is on my website, I have been decent about updating with book stuff. So you can buy a signed copy of the book with or without archival prints of illustrations from the book. You can do like a gift pack or whatever. Signed copies are only available on my website. They are a little more expensive than buying retail. So while I absolutely love and appreciate the support, I completely understand that this is a weird time and some people may or may not have those resources. So if not, if you are interested in the book, I would encourage purchasing from independent if you can. I, with a few other baseball book authors who released books in the spring, we started what is now known as the Pandemic Baseball Book Club. When all of us baseball authors we realized through the Twitter verse that all of our tours and stuff were being canceled, like one after the other. And we were kind of like, what are we going to do about this? And a few of us connected with one another. And then we reached out to some other authors. And basically now we are at like 22 authors. And we're doing a lot of like online and virtual content and author interviews and like some fun, quick, like 5 questions, kind of like you're doing. And,
Nice.
And a few partnerships with a couple of different entities. And we're hoping that next year we'll actually be able to do some of these events together in person, which is pretty unique because it's collaborating with other baseball authors is not it's not very common. So if there's anything good to come of this, that is definitely it's amazing. It's become a really cool supportive community. But we have our own storefront on bookshop.org, so that supports independent bookstores. And you can still get it for the retail price, and it will either be purchased from an independent bookstore or proceeds go to support independent bookstores. So, and IndieBound is another one. And also, Amazon is not prioritizing books right now. So if you order it from Amazon, I sincerely appreciate wherever you order it from, but you may not get it for a while if you order from Amazon. So.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I will be sure to link all those links in the show notes, and so people can find it and get it. I know I'm a big fan of the book, and so I just highly encourage it for anyone, any baseball fan, to kind of dive into it and learn from it. So Thank you so much just for taking the time. I know it was a joy for me, and just thank you so much for keeping baseball great.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this podcast. This is really cool and really special right now, and I appreciate being on. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for listening to the Keep Baseball Great podcast. A special thanks to Anika for spending some time with me and sharing what keeps baseball great for her. You'll definitely want to check out the artwork and love that she's put into her book, so I've linked everything in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. Thanks again for listening to the Keep Baseball Great podcast. If you wouldn't mind just taking a minute and hitting that subscribe button and leaving a review for us, that would be great. So until next time, keep on keeping baseball great.